Most options trading platforms are commission-free, and there are some that don't charge per-contract fees. Public.com goes a step further. When you trade options on Public, there are no commissions, no per-contract fees, and you get a rebate of up to 18 cents per contract traded. That means it costs less than $0 per transaction. In other words, instead of paying to place options trades, you literally earn money, and that money can add up fast. If you trade 1,000 option contracts on Public, you'll earn up to $180 in rebates. 10,000 contracts? Up to almost $1,200. It's pretty obvious why NerdWallet recently gave options trading on Public 5 out of 5 stars. Because Public really stands out for the cost of its options trades. Their words, not ours. If you want to start paying less than $0 to trade options, check out Public.com and get a rebate of up to 18 cents per contract traded. Paid for by Public Investing. Options not suitable for all investors and carry significant risk. Full disclosures in podcast description. U.S. members only. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster, Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. Time for episode 2 of your bi-weekly options extravaganza. Yes, it is time once again for the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. Yes, that one network, the one that broke Spotify last week. Yeah, that's us. Too much to They can handle Rogan. They can't handle the network. Just too much stuff coming at them. Listen, everyone's hitting us up saying, man, we can't get you on Spotify anymore. What happened? And we said, that's strange. So we went and looked, and sure enough, yeah, they were choking on the amount of content we had sent them. Listen, good side, you can get us on Spotify again. The downside, you can't get our full 6,000 plus array of episodes on Spotify any longer. You can only get about 3,000. You got to cut it in half. So that was our compromise. Good thing if you want the full kit and caboodle, the website, the app still has all of it there. They're not choking on it. But Spotify can't handle the goodness. If you want more goodness in your lives, of course, you want to go above and beyond. You want to check out what's going on in the land of the pro. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. As we go around the horn, see who's joining us on the old program today. First, let's go out to the quiet, the tranquil hinterlands of Chicago. We are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show, sir.
The nice, quiet, tranquil hamlet. Great to be here as always.
What were you doing this week? Did you break Spotify as well? What were you up to?
I mean, that's what I do. That's how I roll. I wanted to download some old Grateful Dead concert clips, so I just kept doing it. That's just what I did.
You drove us over the edge. That was it. It was Uncle Mike's extra download this last week that pushed us over the edge and broke the machine that is Spotify. As we keep on going down to the Southern volatility mecca known as Austin, where we are joined once again by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the show, sir.
Hey, good to be here. Excited. This is fun.
This is fun indeed, as we are also joined, I think he was out and about, but I do believe he is joining us now. It is Thursday. It is time to welcome on the Flowmaster, a.k.a. Mr. Henry Schwartz from Cboe East. Mr. Flowmaster, are you there, sir?
I am here, and it's good to talk to. Yes, I was about a block and a half away from the office, right at about 12:59 New York time, which is when we start. But then I remembered that the Cboe disclaimer takes a full 3.5 minutes, so I could casually stroll.
It saved you in this case, yes. But, it's not like the start time changes every week. It's always the same. Yet somehow you are always caught unawares every Thursday. So we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down what the heck is trading out there. And it's been kind of a gently drifting week for most of the week. We're up, we're down, we're slightly mixed. There hasn't been a heck of a lot really going on. It's kind of living up to that early start of summer kind of hype where you don't expect a heck of a lot. And that's kind of what we're getting. Markets seem like they're kind of adrift right now. As we're coming into the start of the show, it seems like they have firmed up a little bit. They are starting to move in lockstep. Earlier in the session, it was mixed. Everything was all over the place. Now, as we're kicking off the start of the show, we are hanging out with the S&P up slightly. I mean, not talking big, 0.05%. Dow up about 0.25%. NASDAQ also up about 0.25%. And our old friends, the small caps, up 0.6%. Again, if you want to hear a little bit of a deeper dive into small caps and all the fun going on there with Recon, make sure you check out last week's episode of This Week in Futures Options, where we did just that. All that green on the screen right now, listeners, means they are coming for our old friend VIX Cash as we're kicking off the show. It's at about a 12:45 or so. That puts it off about 0.8 of a point from where it was on the Monday show. So no longer at or above or even threatening a 13 handle. It seems we are in that gentle vol malaise. Now, that could change tomorrow. We got some numbers, including one of the Fed's preferred numbers coming out tomorrow. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on that front. But that could maybe light a fire under these markets or perhaps continue this tranquil drift we're seemingly caught in right now. But a lot to unpack. Let's go around the horn the opposite of the way we started. Let's go out to the hallowed halls of Cboe East first. Mr. Flowmaster, kind of a gently drifting week heading into the Thursday show. What was catching your eye out there, sir?
Well, it definitely has kind of quieted down. And, yes, we have a holiday week coming up. And, next week I expect it's going to be really quiet because we have a half day on Wednesday. And even though Friday is a full day, it's the full day after July 4th, which means it will be dead. So, things have kind of calmed down. The NVIDIA swings have kind of moderated a little bit. And, it just kind of feels like things have quieted down. I've been handling a lot of incoming calls about dispersion and basically kind of the behavior of the index versus the component names. So, it just does kind of seem like there's not that much actually happening right now. We're in between chapters maybe of excitement.
In between chapters. I like that. We're in the kind of the quiet middle period where the character has a coffee and reflects upon what happened in chapter 1 and gets ready for the aggressive, the fun, the action-packed second half. Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. What is catching your eye out there in a mostly tranquil and drifting week, sir?
We've got Roaring Kitty back. He's buying CHWY. CHWY is halted. The stock jumped 12% because he posted a picture of a dog. So that is the state of this market. CHWY halted, up 15.65%. Roaring Kitty is back. This time he's having at CHWY. And he posted a cute picture of a dog, so it rallied 15%.
You're like a Roaring CHWY update here. You should start a newsletter, the Roaring CHWY update. I'm sure somebody has one already. I thought you were put off of him after the, shall we say, less than inspiring live stream he did.
Well, it's hard to be put off by a 20% pop in a stock. I mean, just because he's, he wasted my time doesn't mean there aren't a million people on Reddit that are going to buy this thing because he said to buy it.
There you go. Get your Reddit updates from the Meatball here on the show, listeners. As we keep on rolling, let's see if Uncle Mike has any deep and meaningful insights. It is a mostly Uncle Mike type of week. We have been mostly drifting into the green, so he should be happy. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what's been catching your eye out there in a very, shall we say, gently drifting week?
It is a very gently drifting week. The fact that so far of our first of the Flowmaster and the Greasy Meatball, all we're hearing about is the highlight of those two. Have to give it to the Greasy Meatball. I'm talking about Roaring Kitty in the market. But with that, there's not a lot happening at this stage. Just looking down some individual names. The thing that I am watching the most right now is seeing if Apple can make a run back at 220. It may or may not, who knows? But it was at 215 a little bit earlier today. So that's probably the biggest thing that's caught my eye so far in the market. That's going on today anyway. With NVIDIA, it's actually down 1.5%. So we actually do have a down thing in NVIDIA, which is, I thought it just goes up 5% every day. What's going on? Something's crazy. So seeing that, and then I think that with where we are from the standpoint of a sector, there's really none that are jumping out too much to me. The Russell 2000 is up 0.5% on the day. But as we've talked about on this show many times, the Russell kind of does its own thing. Who cares about the rest of the market? I'm the Russell 2000. I do what I want to do. Bonds are rallying very slightly today. And precious metals, the silver that I like to love and follow, is relatively flat on the day. But we do have a little bit of a bid going in gold, up 1% on the day. So not a ton happening right now. But got to be excited about Hello Kitty. Why not?
Why not indeed? Well, I'll do my best, listeners. I'll see if I can find something for you folks out there to get excited about. Let's start in the volume numbers. Let's fire up the old Flowmaster machine, shall we, listeners, and see what is afoot out there in these markets. You know, if you're expecting a banger today, probably looking in the wrong place. But, we'll see if we can find some nuggets of fun out there for you. Let's start in VIX land. Is VIX blowing the doors off today? Is VIX lighting up the tape? The answer, you could probably guess, is no. Right around 325,000 contracts on the tape to start the day here. The ADV coming in hard this week. It was hanging out at around 850 not too long ago. On our last show on Monday, it was at 822. It is now 742, down another 80,000 contracts. So again, it is that time of the year, so you could argue it was probably a little bit heavy for the seasonally quiet summer months, but still, coming for it hard this week. If you're looking for a nugget of excitement, how about 40,005 of the November 37 calls? They were going up today in VIXland, all opening. So somebody is opening. So maybe have we graduated to that, listeners? It used to be 47 halves, then it was 42 halves. Now apparently the strike du jour is the 37 strike. If you're wondering what it traded for, it looks like it was 62 cents. Looks like actually went up as part of a spread. So yeah, this was and the other leg now it's hiding on me. The Nove 20. So this is the Nove 20 37 1x4. So if all the 1x5s you've been talking about not doing it for you, allow me to present a 1x4. It's like they did the 20s for $2 and the 37s 4 times for 62 cents. So clearly if they did it looks like they bought the 5, so they paid about 40 cents for this bad boy. So there you go. They continue to gently move that 1x5 lower and lower. They're now roughly 10 handles lower than they used to be on the upside 5 or 4x strike. So interesting times out there. SPY 3.9 million. The ADV 7.03 million. The S also kind of quiet, 1.35 million. The ADV 2.99 million. Now again, this just a couple of years ago, if I had told you 1.35 million, you'd be like, oh my God, what's going on in the S? What's driving it north of $1 million so early in the day? now we expect it. So it's not that big of a deal. The small caps, kind of sleepy today as well. 413,000 contracts on the tape right now. The ADV, 1.18 million. So doesn't seem like they're going to hit that today. And the Q's a little light as well. Exactly 2 million contracts on the tape as of right now. The ADV, 3.45 million. So the Q's, you know the Q's, they tend to come to life in the second half of the session. So we'll see if they can get there by the end of the day as we go out to the single names out there. Now this, I will admit, this one kind of surprised me because looking at the rest of the market, you're kind of like, it's a pretty light day. I was not expecting a banger day on the single name front. I certainly was not expecting it to cost 304,000 contracts to break into the top 10. So there you go, listeners. You're looking for a nugget, a ray of optimism, perhaps a dose of excitement in your day. Allow me to present that. Number 10, that gets us all the way to my favorite name out there, the Walgreens Boots Alliance. Sounds like it's coming right out of Star Trek. And looks like it's going straight to zero, at least right now, selling off 25%, trading 1170 off about $4. The Alliance not doing well right now. I think the Klingons and the Romulans are coming for them, and they're putting the screws to the Walgreens Boots Alliance. Either way, this one, taking a bit of a drubbing. I think they said they're going to close. They said up 75% of their sales or something like that comes from, a small percentage of their stores. So they could close a lot of stores and still be all right. So that apparently is the plan, and the street not liking it out there. The Alliance taking on the chin, but good for 304,000 contracts. So sleepy day, middle, end of June, 304,000 contracts. That is not nothing, listeners. So intriguing stuff afoot there on the single name front. We're at the end of earnings season as well. A lot of people are wringing their hands. Oh, there's no more catalysts, nothing really to watch. And you know what? Sometimes the market can surprise you. Like today, number 9. We go out to the artist formerly known as Facebook. It's Meta, 309,000 contracts. So last few shows, it's taken us all the way up to like number 5 or 6 to even get up to 300K. Now we're right there kicking it off. Meta up nearly $5 today, trading a little bit shy of 518. Good for number 9, 309,000 contracts on the tape. Number 8. Popping hard today. This is Palantir up $1.15, trading 25.25, up nearly 5% today. You know this name. They're up, they're down. They're very much that they got a rare buy rating recently, but more buyers than sellers out there today, listeners. They are becoming a regular, a staple on our top 10 these days. Today, number 8, 347,000 contracts on the tape. Number 7, Roaring Kitty's old stomping grounds. Maybe this is old hat to him now. He's moved on to CHWY. Either way, it's GameStop. You know it, you love it, maybe you hate it. Trading 25.25, up $1.08, nearly 5% for that one as well. Good for 357,000 contracts. And the number 7 spot. Number 6, it's RIVN. You heard about this one. This one kind of was circling the drain for a while. And then Volkswagen giving them a pretty sizable shot in the arm. This stock shooting up. It was 10.25 last Friday. It was about $12 on Tuesday, $11.96, and it shot up to $18.50 on Tuesday, just off the news of this pretty sizable infusion of capital from Volkswagen. Since then, it has mostly given up the ghost. Got up to $18.43 at its high, at its apex on Tuesday, and it's $14.48 right now. It's almost exactly $4 lower. Today, it has given up another $0.25. So RIVN, as it has shown in the past, can't really sustain a bid. Today, number 6, though, 408,000 contracts. So there is some action. There is some paper afoot out there in RIVN today. You know what? I'm kind of curious, listener. Let's just take a quick sojourn into the wild hinterlands of RIVN. What is lighting it up? We're at $14.50 roughly, listeners. It's the June 14th, expiring tomorrow, so the 28th. So a one-day call. Going up 30,000, almost 31,000 times today. So in the money calls, interesting. And then about 20,000 of the 15s also expiring tomorrow. That's not enough for you listeners. About 17, almost 18,000 of the 16s also expiring tomorrow. If past is prologue, people are probably buying most of those. So 16s ain't looking great. 15s, they have a day to go, obviously, with all of these. Anything could happen, but not looking great. 14's looking good, but not looking as good as they were this morning. So intriguing stuff afoot. Let's look really quickly. What are those 16s going for out there with one day to go? If I could hit the right button, that would help. There we go. A nickel. So there you go. That's about what I expected. They got as high as 9 cents this morning. So there you go, listeners. So that floats your boat. You want to really just roll them bones. 16s expiring tomorrow in RIVN for a nickel. Are you buying what this market is selling? You thinking this is the perhaps rejuvenation of RIVN? You think this is just the pause before the inevitable end? I know the Ford folks kind of got tired of them, washed their hands of them a while ago. Volkswagen, apparently not. Number 5 listeners are going out to the fruit company today. It's Apple. You know, we were just riding the death knell of Apple, the obit for them in our top 10, certainly in our top 2 or 3, saying it seems like there's a new regime out there. Tesla has beaten it every day for a couple of years now, and NVIDIA now beating Tesla, so Apple getting kicked to the curb. Seemed like it was kind of in a malaise, not a lot of volume going on, and then bam, this stock buyback happens, and this thing just roars back to life. And now we're seeing Apple, number 5, already at 726,000 contracts. So a respectable clip for Apple today, 213.84, up about 60 cents right now. So apparently, this thing has rallied $3.50 or nearly 2% just this week. So apparently, the looming prospect of additional EU fines, that's fantastic. They love it. Bring it on, EU. It rallied off that news. So it's just that market, listeners. The big tech has to go up. I think they're legally obligated. Number 4, we talked about this before. Everything old is new again. And this one looking a little bit older today. This is Micron, trading 133 exactly right now, off 9 1/3 or nearly 7%, about 6 3/4%. They are coming for it. You know, everyone kind of hit them with the AI stick. They thought that magic pixie dust was going to sprinkle on into Micron as well. They were going to get a similar run that we've seen with NVIDIA, all these other names that have whispered the magic letters of AI. And apparently they are not meeting those expectations because they are coming for it today. So apparently you can sell off in the AI world unless you're in NVIDIA. Even has sold off a little bit of late as well. But yeah, they are coming for Micron today. So was this whole AI bit just a flash in the pan? Let's see. They are off on the week now. They're off about 4 1/4%. Year to date, though, hard to feel bad for them. It's still up 61% or a little over 50 handles. Again, just whisper those magic 2 letters. That's all you have to do. By the way, the Options Insider Radio Network coming to you, powered totally by AI now. Bam. If we had a stock, it would be up 25% just on those news. Number 3, back in the day, listeners, this one used to be our big dog. Seems like the worm has turned. This is Tesla, looking decent today, 1.3 million. It also shows you 1.3 used to be enough to top our list. Not, it seems, anymore, listeners. Tesla, 1.3 million, up about $0.33. So quite literally a rounding error for them, trading 196 3/4. So they're threatening 200 again. Again, they're pretty far off their 52-week high of 300, but also bouncing off their 52-week low of 138 as well. So 1.3 million for Tesla, and it's only good for the number 3 spot. What's eclipsing them? Well, a rare day for the Amazonians, taking the number 2 spot, listeners. 1.59 million contracts on the tape for them. At number 2, they're up $4.80, or about 2.5%, trading 198 and about a half. That could be a good, fun flash poll as well. Both Amazon and Tesla hanging out close at $200. Which one would you rather buy? Right now, Amazon on a bit of the rampage. They're up 32% or 48 handles just year to date. So good run for them. And hitting the 2 trillion market cap yesterday. And apparently this run today is just the spillover, the leftover optimism from that. And then number 1, do you need me to tell you anymore, listeners? It's NVIDIA's market. We're all just living in. Even though NVIDIA, this is interesting to see. You know, NVIDIA has been selling off now for the better part of the last week. See, it's off $2 today, 210, 1.65%, trading 124 and about a third. Over the last 5 days, let's see, it got up to about 130 and as low as 116. So it's kind of hanging out in the middle of its weekly range right now. So it has recovered from its nadir of the week on Monday. And it's still up on the month. It's still up nearly 9% just month to date, or about a little over 10.5 handles. So play the world's smallest violin for NVIDIA, but still 2.5 million contracts. It'll be interesting to see if NVIDIA keeps having this chop and a lot of red days, if the market can sustain its momentum with its leader, its vanguard, its standard bearer having some issues out there. Either way, 2.5 million on the tape for NVIDIA. If you're looking for some hot earnings action, we got a little for you, I suppose. I mentioned Walgreens Boots Alliance already. They popped up before the bell today. They were at 1566 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 7.7%. Yeah, spoiler alert. They outperformed that, listeners. They were at 23.1% when we ran this report earlier this morning. Right now, they're at about 25% to the dark side. So a rough day out there for the Alliance. We already talked about them. Levi's, they were yesterday after the bell. They were pricing in another one. We've been talking about just buy and vol this cycle. And the last couple of cycles has been almost a winning trade across the board. And that continues to be the case. 7.2% is what they were pricing in for Levi's. They went into their announcement 23.12. Right now, or I should say, as we ran this report, they were 19.25, off nearly 17%, and they're still at about exactly that same price right now. So once again, dramatically outperforming their straddle, listeners. And you know the deal with Micron already. Let's see, they were at 142.33. They were actually pricing in 12.2%. So technically, actually, they were pricing in so much juice. They're at 6.5% right now. So they actually surprisingly underperformed their straddle. But you could probably argue they were a little hefty to begin with, but still one of the few outliers out there. We do have Nike after the bell today if you're looking to sink your teeth into some earnings numbers. They were at 94 even when we ran this report. They were pricing in 739 in the past. They've moved 745. So pretty much exactly in line with their previous announcements, which is kind of interesting, especially given the fact that this season hanging out at a whopping 119%, then this is just the most explosive cycle we've ever seen since we've been crunching these numbers, and it's been a while since we started doing that, listeners. So just impressive numbers across the board. Only 1 week was red this entire cycle, and that was week 1. That was also the lightest number of firms, only 48 reporting, and that came in at 99%. So to call it weak is kind of overselling it. And they're every other week, 121, 121, 113, 139, averaging now to 119%. So a banger cycle across the board. Our long-term average, 109%. Once we crunch those numbers and we kick off next cycle, that's going to be higher, obviously. So just an explosive time on the earnings volatility front. But I know what you're asking. You're asking, isn't it an explosive time on the unusual activity front? Well, that's what the Flowmaster is here for. Let's find out. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, listeners, let's get weird. Let's get wild. I just did a lot of talking. Let's see if these guys can catch up now with some fun out here. Let's go out here to the Flowmaster. And Mr. Flowmaster, I see one of your first trades you highlighted, ironically enough, is one that came across our radar earlier this week as well. In fact, I think we have it in the listener questions. Yes, we do. This came in from one of our pro members, Alan. I think this was Monday, maybe Tuesday. He said, "Hey, Mark, did you catch this? Not sure what this guy is smoking. Did I miss something?" And he sent us a tweet from this guy, Nikita Beer. He has a boatload of followers on Twitter. He's some, app developer or something. And apparently he was talking about RIVN calls as well. He said some guy bought RIVN calls this morning, I believe this was on Monday, that expire on Friday for 12 cents each, and they're now worth $5.30. He made $2 million in 5 hours. And they sent that to us saying, what the hell? This doesn't make sense. And so we looked at it. And you're right, Alan. It did not make sense. In fact, I think we even tweeted to that effect back on Monday. But yeah, they bought them. That print did go up. They bought 4,000 for 12 cents. And obviously, a good do. Obviously, something that should be investigated. But I'm sure the Flowmaster has some thoughts about that as well. At the time, I think the stock was around 11.66, so it was still pretty frothy. They bought the 13 calls, 4,000 times for 12 cents. When we crunched the numbers, I think it was on Monday after the close, the calls had rallied, obviously, because RIVN was popping. They were 16 at 18, though. It wasn't a crazy homer. It wasn't the $5 he was talking about. So I think at the time they had made like 35 grand on they spent 48,000 obviously on the trade to begin with. Depending on where you spotted the options, it was somewhere around, 35 grand, I think it was. So it was a winner, obviously, a good do, as they say, but it wasn't the $5.30, which obviously, if you look at the stock, you can empirically figure that out. So it just goes to show you how how far-reaching unusual options activity is these days, Mr. Flowmaster, because people are tweeting about it all over the place who know absolutely nothing about it, but they know enough to be dangerous, which is kind of interesting. So, Mr. Flowmaster, I noticed you spotted those calls as well. What did you think, sir?
Well, yeah, and whenever there's a catalyst or deal or something, and we see a big move in a stock, I definitely go back. And hindsight is, of course, 2020, so it's easy to find these things, but I do get the feeling that somebody might have known something was coming for RIVN, because that activity on the 25th, which was the day, right? But Volkswagen announced their injection of capital after the close that day. There were some big trades. Now, it was actually both directions, though. So there were some puts trading as well. So you know what? If today the stock was trading at 50 cents, we might be looking at some of these other trades, including the 6 strike puts, which about 5,000 of those were bought for a few pennies. But if you look at these kind of cheap dollar, these cheap option trades, basically the lottery tickets, we usually call them, right? On the 25th, when stock closed under $12, the call volume was almost double. The put volume was almost double. The stock volume was also very heavy. So that's why I kind of feel like, maybe this was starting to leak out a little bit. But one of the big trades was 5,000 of these kind of, we're all just talking about these options that expire tomorrow, the 28th. 5,000 of the 14 strike calls were bought for a nickel. Those were opening. And then 4,000 of the 13 strike calls were bought for 12 cents, a little bit earlier in the day, a little bit before noon. 12 cents also opening. And as you said, these are trades that are, in the, basically, $20,000 premium level, trades that, you or I might have even been able to do in our personal account. And they were worth about $1.5 million, the next morning. It is why we pay attention to unusual activity. I was just talking to an institutional client yesterday, and just kind of quickly laying out, what we're looking for, right? We're looking for these out of the money calls bought exceeding open interest, so we know it's opening. We like to see these aggressive sweep executions, because that means that it's not a negotiated trade. To me, it also means basically the buyer doesn't really want to show too many people who they are. And when they create new open interest, and it's an obvious purchase, right, above theoretical value, at or through the offer, that's pretty compelling stuff. So, and in this case, it definitely, preceded a pretty significant move.
Yeah, I'm looking here. There are still looks like about 11,000 open on this strike here. They bought 4,000 listeners, so it doesn't seem like they got out. They traded on Tuesday, by the way, Tuesday morning, 10,429 total on that day. So they could have come back in. The initial block was 4,000. They could have come back later and gotten out. But I'm looking at here some of the highest prints for that day. And like I said, they went out at like 16 cents. So you bought them for 12, you sold them for 16. That's a good do, obviously, but it's not what we're talking about now. Obviously, the stock's $14.50. These are 13 calls. I think you can figure it out. They're worth $1.50, listeners. So now you're talking some serious money, right? You're talking over $500,000 on the table. They spent $48,000 for it. So I mean, it was not an insubstantial buy, but also they're doing pretty well on these right now. Mr. Meatball, I'm sure these came across your radar, but people hitting you up about these as well. And what are your thoughts about the whiff of impropriety around RIVN this week, sir?
Yeah, I think that's probably Henry's right in that there was a dramatic uptick in volume, not just these, but these do have a little bit of a fishiness to them, do they not?
They have a fishiness. It is weird how they permeated in the...
Well-timed, you might say.
A lot of people picked up on these who are not traditional watchers of unusual activity, which is also an interesting sign that people have their radar, their antennae up. Also, you're talking about Roaring Kitty before. CHWY obviously lighting it up today as well, as you mentioned, up 3 1/3, trading 32.5 or 11.5%. As you'll recall, listeners, CHWY is actually kind of, everyone talks about GameStop, but it's CHWY kind of responsible for the meme stock frenzy. As you'll recall, it was I think he took over, or pointing to the board, I forgot exactly what it was, the former CEO of CHWY to GameStop that is what was the catalyst for all of this. That's when people like your Roaring Kitties and everybody else over at Wall Street Bets started really talking up this name, saying, hey, this CHWY guy can maybe turn things around, which is probably why all these years later, he's got his radar back on CHWY again. Mr. Flowmaster, seems like CHWY on your radar this week. What'd you see, sir?
Well, the CHWY stuff, I mean, that's kind of right now. What's interesting is actually there's another one, Bark. Okay, so there's a theme here, right? And I guess I didn't actually see the tweet. If Roaring Kitty tweeted a picture of a dog, I mean, how do we know it's not like for Dogecoin or something? But it seems like it seems like the world kind of jumped into CHWY, and given that Ryan Cohen used to be the CEO, there's certainly something in common there. I kind of wonder if maybe Ryan Cohen and Keith Gill are having drinks together some nights. But Bark, B-A-R-K, I believe it's a pet products company, very thinly traded. That thing shot up as well. So if you look at the chart on it, it was a $12 stock. Going back a few years, it's been basically under $2 for most of this year. But today, basically kind of when this was all happening, somebody came in about 900 of the August 2 calls for a quarter. This is when the stock was trading around $1.70 as it was kind of starting to lift. And then we see some August 2.5 calls at a dime. So this could be people, I would guess, this is probably some people taking a cheap shot, thinking maybe the dog was not CHWY, but maybe it was something similar like Bark or any other animal noise tickers that we can go look for. But basically just kind of some very, very quick, shows you how quickly people are watching for the headlines and jumping right into the options where you pick up the leverage. You pick up the, kind of the convexity that options give you. So it's worth keeping an eye on. I don't know if I would trade this one. These things, if it's already kind of fading, then these cycles seem to go quicker every time.
I just pulled up Doge while you were talking. It did rally from 12 cents this morning to 13. So maybe some folks thought he was tweeting about Doge as well. You're right. It's open to interpretation of what he was tweeting about there. Bark right now, $1.82 listeners, up about 8 cents or nearly 5% on the day. On the year, this one has kind of been struggling to find its footing. A year ago, trading close to $1.50, about $1.40. Sold off around December to 70 cents. That was its low for the year. Since then, it has rallied, including its next leg up. Last week, it was trading $1.38, and now it is $1.82, so it's pretty much up almost 50 cents on the week off this news. Looks like somebody playing for the 2-strike in August. I mean, given the way these meme stocks work, that isn't the most insane trade we've seen. Mr. Meatball, did this Bark come across your radar at all, sir? What do you think?
Yeah, I after Henry, I'd never heard of it, but after Henry brought it up, yeah, the July 2 calls, there's 1,700 of those going up. The August 2 calls are now, the person that bought them a quarter, that's the bid. And you can see some action kind of across the board there. Pretty interesting stuff.
Looking a little bit memey out there, listener. You like that? Is that a fun flyer for you? Then maybe this is your low cost lottery ticket of the week out here. Who knows? Bark, is it even going to move? Is it even related? Does it even matter in this market anymore, listeners? That's the world we're all living in here. Let's do one more here before we get to some more of you folks. We already put some of you folks on the show here. Let's go out to a newcomer. I do believe this is MPLX. This is a subsidiary of Marathon Petroleum, trading $42.30, off about a dime today. So not a banger day for them today. Let's see. On the year, it's been mostly straight up. They were $33.70 a year ago. They're up about $8.60 on the year, or about 25%. So it's been pretty much a straight up year for them. A couple of hiccups, but really nothing crazy. The biggest sell-off they had looks like was about 42 1/3 on April 4th, down to about 39 2/3 on April 16th. And then they've been pretty much rallying ever again. So yeah, been mostly straight up year here for MPLX. And looking at the flow we saw today, listeners, looks like somebody thinks the party shall continue. Coming in this morning and scooping 3,000. They said, set 43s, how are they? And they said 60 at 75. I said, bam, we'll pay 75. 3,000 times. It's pretty, again, that looks cheap. If it sounds cheap, it's because it is. It's only a 13.5 vol, listeners. So they're not paying a heck of a lot of juice for these at all. The stock was pretty much, actually a little bit higher. The stock was 42.42 and they bought these stock 42.29, right now. So it has sold off a little bit. Worth noting, for their 75 cents, they do get an earnings announcement. It is on August 6th. So, 75 cents is a little richer than what we're just talking about, 12, 15, 25 cents. But vol-wise, it's not crazy. And given the trajectory of this stock, you could argue, dare I say it, it might be a reasonable one. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what are your thoughts? Somebody coming out swinging for some pretty close uprights in our new favorite name, Metroplex here, MPLX.
So this one, you have to look at the Tide trades. So if you do Tide /Tide MPLX or /spread MPLX, you'll see this was a purchase, but it was purchased Tide Delta neutral to 132,000 shares of stock at 42.41, which is pretty much where the stock was. So based on our Theo, it was about 6 cents over. And if you actually looked at it, is a pretty thin name, right? And it only trades like 1.7 million shares a day. So that 130,000 share hedge, if they had not traded at neutral, they'd have to go somebody, the market maker, even though in many cases they don't go buy the stock exactly, but still the impact would be that of about 7% of the daily stock volume, which I've actually worked on this calculation. It's not as easy as I wish it was, but think about trying to buy 7% of anything, in a quick instant, and there's going to be an impact. There's going to be a lot of slippage. So it definitely does look like, a medium term upside position. Maybe they're getting out of stock and getting into the options. If the stock has done okay over the last year or so, possibly, but it's definitely a new position. Looks like stock's kind of just it's up from 37 to 42 into this year, and then it's kind of leveled off. So it wouldn't surprise me actually if this was a stock replacement trade like that.
Could have the whiff of stock replacement about it as well, listeners. That's why we like digging in the flow a little bit. Yeah, we have to watch out. Sometimes these prints, they go up cross, but they don't go up tight. So you have to kind of dig for the second stock leg. But it's time for us, listeners, to dig into a little bit of what you folks have on the brain. Time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the all-star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, let's get down to business. We already talked about this question from Alan about the RIVN calls. Let's get out to our actual question of the week right now. We actually had a twofer, also inspired by our little fun debate we had on Monday about all things VIX, and in particular, crazy VIX upside. We talked about somebody putting up 63,000 of the July 65 calls for a whopping 4 cents, which led to a debate, listeners, of, what do you think about these types of quote unquote strategies in VIX? Do you like them? You think? I mean, I know Matt's been on the network for a while arguing about the utility for these, as he puts on these garbage or junk VIX calls. He says they're not as cheap as you're not as expensive as you might think, and they actually hold their value longer than you might expect. And you don't need, obviously, a run anywhere near the 65 strike in this case to make those things pay a decent return. So he's been advocating for those for a while. We asked you folks. He said, hey, do you think junk VIX calls can pop? You think it's a complete waste of capital? You don't care, it's just a hedge, or do you prefer it as a back spread? And 59.3% of you, I guess you've been infected by Matt. 59.3% of you said you like your junk VIX calls. You said junk VIX calls can pop on occasion. 22.2% say forget about it, it's a waste of capital. 14.8% say you don't care, it's just somebody hedging a portfolio position somewhere else. So a little over a third of you not that interested. And then 3.7% of you, I thought it'd be higher, prefer it as a back spread, which is how these normally go up. We just talked about it earlier. Selling one, buying 4, selling one, buying 5. That's the way we typically see it. That's kind of the way I prefer it as well. But you folks apparently like them as a bit of a flyer. Fast forward to our actual question of the week right now. We said, hey, it's the start of summer. The weather is hot and realized vol is in the toilet. Which option strategies do you anticipate using the most during this traditionally quiet period until Labor Day? Are you getting long some premium? You're going to buy calls, puts or verticals? You're going to get short? You're going to go to the dark side, selling calls, puts or verticals? You're going to go maybe a little bit more exotic? You go in the calendars and diagonals, that sort of thing? Or do you have something else on the brain? Uncle Mike, we shall start with you, sir. First off, what are your thoughts in terms of approaches to what is the traditionally quiet summer period? Do you do anything special? And then B, what do you think our audience is up to?
Well, in terms of what I like to do special in the summer, I like to hang out on the Fox River as much as I can, as long as the damn pirates don't get to us.
Battling those damn pirates.
Yeah, they're trying to mess with our dam. Even Dick Durbin's coming out and trying to. Dick Durbin is officially a dam pirate, by the way, our senator. He's against us, so not trying to be political from a national standpoint, but from a local standpoint to Dick Durbin. Anyway, with that being said, in terms of what I like to do in the summer, I think there's the fact that we have some lower volatility right now. It is an opportunity for hedging, combined with the fact that we're at near all-time highs right now in the S&P 500. That's what I'm looking at. So I guess if I had to say something in terms of where we're at with our poll, I'm going to go with long premium.
Intriguing. Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. If you have a preference, have at it. And then B, which way do you think our audience is going? Are they buying premium? Are they selling it? Are they going, the calendar route or something else?
Our audience is degenerate premium sellers. They love it. But I think right now with vol low and with realized volatility as low as it is, you could take a shot on some long premium.
Mr. Flowmaster, the last vote is yours, sir. Which way do you think our audience is going? And also, if you have a vote, have at it, sir.
Well, Mark's right. It's an interesting time, right? Vol is low, like historically low. We look at the chart. We're like, well, we're at the bottom of the chart. However, we're realizing even less than that. So it's one of these situations where like, well, it's lately the better trade has been to sell it, even if it's down at 12 or 11 and a half. And I would bet that but our listeners would still be leaning that way, because owning optionality, it's great. You come in every morning hoping something's going to happen, but most mornings nothing happens.
This just shows, listeners, we speak to the hardcores, because right now it is indeed an epic battle between short premium, so the Meatball was right there, but also calendars and diagonals. Nobody's buying vol out there, which is kind of interesting. They're both right around 44% as of right before the show here. So calendars and diagonals getting a lot more love than I thought. Only 11.1% of you want buy some premium. So that kind of surprised. I know you folks lean a little bit towards the dark side, so I kind of expected the short premium to take it, but that is surprising. You know what is not surprising, though, is the cleverness of our audience. Let's go out to this comment on YouTube from a long-time listener. I recognize his handle, BZ Tokyo. BZ Tokyo. He was chiming in on our option block from not this Monday, but the previous Monday, where we did, our trivia question that week was choose your own adventures, as you recall, listeners. That was our 80s bit of trivia. Uncle Mike did win that one. And he wrote in to say there was an issue with YouTube. He says, YouTube says it uploaded the show 10 hours ago on Wednesday morning. So he says the show came out late on YouTube, which is weird. We looked into that and can't see a reason for that. So it might be an issue with the Japanese version of YouTube, maybe uploading it late. I'm not sure. It all is automatic, so it should all be going out at the same time. But he says, as a result, you have been found guilty of delaying the very few YouTube listeners of this very important show, and your punishment will be as follows. If you decide to stay and fight, turn to page 34, or flee to page 56. I like that. That brought a chuckle and a smile to my face, listeners. Yes, a little bit of his own, embracing, obviously, the choose your own adventure theme of the show. Did you read those books back in the 80s, listeners? I know I did. Fun times. I decide to stay and fight. So what happens to me? I'm on page 34. Now I have to go find out. I have to keep my thumb, though, on the page in case I don't like the outcome. So well done for you, BZ. And sorry it takes so long for the YouTube uploads to get all the way over there to Japan. We'll talk to the folks, YouTube Japan. See if we can make it happen for you as we keep on rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody. Some stuff on the tape to end the week here, including some of the Fed's preferred numbers out there. So there's just still some stuff to watch. Let's go out to the Flowmaster first. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, what are you keeping an eye on throughout the rest of the week until your next appearance?
Next Thursday is the 4th of July, isn't it? I think we're probably
so we're
off.
off.
Unless you're going to make me work.
I'm going to make you come in on a holiday. So yeah, 2 weeks for you, sir. 2 weeks for you.
I think I will be watching. It is interesting, right? It's a little bit like a race where you can't tell which of the cars is going to win between Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia. Everybody's kind of jockeying for that front. Apple, Tesla, maybe they're in a pack behind. But there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the single stock world. I think that keeping as close an eye as I can on vol and skew. I think today is probably a good day to rerun one of my inverted skew count charts just to see how memey we are right now. The record was basically during COVID in 2021. About almost 20% of the single stocks had a higher call wing than put wing. The last time I looked, which was just a couple weeks ago, we were kind of around 7%. So still much higher. Before COVID, it was about 3% of the names had that kind of speculative configuration for vol. So I'm going to keep looking at some of these pockets because it seems like this is going to keep us entertained through the summer.
Shall indeed find the new CHWYs and Barks and RIVNs of the world. Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on? In your case, until the Monday episode, sir.
Yeah, well, we've got PCE on Friday. We've got the presidential debates Thursday. Start to have a Nike earnings tonight, which I think are going to be worth keeping an eye on. And I want to see if we can get some sort of breakout. This realized vol has been super low.
And Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until the Monday episode?
Aside from what was just mentioned, continuing to watch silver. It's consolidating in the upper 20s and seeing if we can get some type of a breakout to the upside or the downside. It hasn't been in the upper 20s this long for a while, and just waiting to see if this is the ceiling or it's creating a new floor.
All right, listeners, that music means we've hit the floor for this episode. But you know what? Never fear, even if you're out there in Tokyo, waiting for the YouTube version. If you want more content in your lives, we'll be back in a little bit talking all things futures options on This Week in Futures Options. Stay tuned for that. Back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, for a little bit of vol views. Actually coming to you before that because I will be traveling tomorrow. Next week is a holiday after all. So I will be traveling during the usual oddities time tomorrow. So I do believe oddities coming to you early tomorrow before vol views. So you can catch a doubleheader of oddities right into vol views. Should be kind of fun. Speaking of fun, let's go around the horn and see what everyone else has in store in terms of fun that you may find interesting. Let's start with the Uncle of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what do you have for our audience that could be fun, sir?
Well, up on July 9th, I'll be having a webinar on sequence of return risk and talking about how hedged equity can be a great part in your portfolio if it applies to you as a retiree. We'll be discussing that concept. And if you're interested in following me on Twitter, I try to put a lot of content out. Please do give me a follow at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw. If you're looking for a financial advisor who's not afraid of the option product, head to my website, book an appointment with me, stcharleswealth.com.
There you go. And Mr. Meatball, same question for you. What fun do you have in store for the masses, sir?
Oh, I've got lots of stuff going on right now. In a couple of weeks, we got our conference in Chicago. You'll be there. Mike will be there. I think the Flowmaster was out of town or won't be in Chicago. But, Henry, if you want to swing out, you're invited.
Thank you.
That will be some,
as always.
That will be some fun, listeners. So I've said it before, if you're going to be in the Chi-Town area in July, you owe it to yourselves to check it out. I will be there, or B Square. Uncle Mike, rumor has it, we'll be doing a live option block. Maybe I will finally give Uncle Mike his prize that he won last year for our 80s trivia con. It's been sitting on my desk. I will be sad to part with it, but you know what? Uncle Mike earned it fair and square. I like to give it to him in person, so maybe we'll do that July. All sorts of fun to be found You can find that if you follow Mr. Meatball on the old Twitters at Option Pit. We'll tweet out the link for you as well so you can check it out. Be there or be square. And Mr. Flowmaster, it's going to be 2 weeks until we chat again, sir. In the meantime, sir, if folks want more Cboe goodness in their lives, where should they go? What should they do?
I'll miss you for a week. Well, head on over to cboe.com/RMA to check out all of our platforms. And we actually have something pretty exciting on Monday. We're upgrading our alerts on flex options, which are options where the trader gets to pick the strike and expiration. It could be pretty much anything you want. We're actually going to have theoretical values and Greeks on those, and that's a never before seen in the market innovation. So I'm excited for that. I will show you. I'll show you a few on your window, Mark, just so you can get used to it.
All right, I'm looking for that. You're right. I've never seen that before. Greeks and theoreticals on flex option. Listeners, if you want to see why flex is just lighting up the tape right now, check out all the shows I did down at the Options Industry Conference. A lot of them have hit the network. Others, all of them hit the pro ahead of time, so you can check those out there as well. And then they'll be making their way out. I think the NASDAQ one just hit yesterday, I believe. More to come. So if you're intrigued, what the heck is up with all this flex? Check out those episodes. You'll see why flex is lighting up the tape. In the meantime, if you want to check out all of these cool goodies that the Flowmaster is talking about, only one place to go. Cboe.com/RMA is the place to go. We got to get on out of here. Back again in a little bit for This Week in Futures Options. Then, of course, tomorrow, oddities and vol views, reverse order. Then back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. Most options trading platforms are commission-free, and there are some that don't charge per-contract fees. Public.com goes a step further. When you trade options on Public, there are no commissions, no per-contract fees, and you get a rebate of up to 18 cents per contract traded. That means it costs less than $0 per transaction. In other words, instead of paying to place options trades, you literally earn money, and that money can add up fast. If you trade 1,000 option contracts on Public, you'll earn up to $180 in rebates. 10,000 contracts? Up to almost $1,200. It's pretty obvious why NerdWallet recently gave options trading on Public 5 out of 5 stars. Because Public really stands out for the cost of its options trades. Their words, not ours. If you want to start paying less than $0 to trade options, check out Public.com and get a rebate of up to 18 cents per contract traded. Paid for by Public Investing. Options not suitable for all investors and carry significant risk. Full disclosures in podcast description, U.S. members only.